Hi friends. So this is an impromptu training thing for Street Fighter. I'm just trying to get this video out quickly so people that I'm playing with tonight can kind of have some more information, and then, you know, hopefully you can look back on this video later and be like, oh, I can learn stuff from this still. We talked yesterday about, let me pull up my notes here, sorry. Alright, we talked yesterday about a bunch of different like kind of basic stuff with Street Fighter. So I think the best place to start is training mode, but even training mode has some stuff you kind of have to learn. So the first thing I would recommend to most people who are literally just starting the game, like if you are brand new, go to options, go to other settings here, and shortcut settings. And all these things apply to training mode. I usually play with, I think, like these ones on or something like this. But the important one is this one right here. This lets you reset the training mode by just pressing the left stick in. If you're playing on like a arcade stick or something, you can you know, set that to a button. I think, I don't remember what button it'll set to, but being able to just press one button and reset everything makes training mode a lot simpler. So I would come into here, set this option to on, and you can read the bottom of the screen what the rest of these do, and there's some useful stuff in here, but like the most important thing is that you can one button restart. So go to options, other settings, shortcut commands, or shortcut settings, turn this to on. Also, just think about last night, a lot of people were saying that the game was louder than Party Chat. This is a loud ass game. You can come into here, sound settings. When I'm recording or streaming or something like that, I'm usually set to this. Sometimes I'll turn all these 6s to 4s and the 4 to 2. But yeah, it is a real loud game. You just got to be mindful of that. And you can't like change these settings in game, so you kind of have to come out here to do it. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so we are set up to go into training and learn some of the basics. It's not like a requirement by any stretch, but I prefer to start training on the grid, just like the basic training stage. I'm told there's some psychological stuff about spacing that helps because you have the little grid lines, but I don't know if that's that big a deal. I main Sagat, but yesterday the most popular characters were definitely Nash, Chun-Li, Ken, and Rashid. So for the most part, I think I'm gonna do this stuff with, you know, some of those characters. So I'll start with Chun-Li because I like her the most.
Now, let's begin.
And just for the sake of like things being basic, I'm gonna make Ryu the training opponent. Most people will tell you if you're learning the game, you want to start training with Ryu versus Ryu. I'm not gonna put y'all back that far because I know a lot of you are like, y'all have played fighting games before and stuff like that. It's not that basic, but yeah, that is the ideal way to do it if you want to like completely focus, drill down into wax on, wax off mode. All right, so now that we're in training, my settings are already kind of pre-saved, but I'm just gonna run you through a little bit of this stuff. So I think your training when you open it will look just like this, like a regular match. I turn on key display, so when I press buttons, you see that on the left side of the screen there, and that's going to be helpful for this video too. We'll get into that later. And attack data here, which gives you all the information at the top. Don't worry too much about the frame stuff and all that right now. On a basic level, it might be worth it to pay attention to like the damage number for certain stuff, so you know that like this kick does 70 damage, but this kick does 90 or whatever. Alright, so into the actual video game part. Oh, by the way, that thing we turned on, that's what it does. So I click the left stick and it reset everything. That's really helpful because if you're like, you know, trying out combos or something and you got a sequence you want to practice, then you get to the corner so you don't have to do this crap right here and jump over and then put them back to the middle, because like, nah, just click L3, you're good every single time. And it'll save you a lot of time, trust me. But anyway, alright, so actual basics. I know this sounds super simple, but like you gotta press all your buttons, and by that I mean like you need to know what your buttons do for your character and from what range. The basics of Street Fighter is a 6-button game, so you have 3 punch buttons and you have 3 kick buttons. Your 3 punches by default is square, that's light punch, triangle is medium, R1 is heavy. Obviously light is the fastest, medium, and fastest and usually shortest range. I don't know if that's the case for Chun-Li. Hers might not be that short, but you get my point. Medium slower, usually has longer range. Heavy is the slowest and has the most range. You know, the damage scales appropriately too. Heavy does the most damage, 30, 60, 80. Kicks, obviously, same thing. That's light, medium, heavy. So that is true for everybody. It's a 6-button game. It gets we'll get into the unique attack stuff later, but the main thing you want to know about your buttons is basically how they hit and what their range is like. So for example, this kick, Chun-Li's stand and light kick, goes up in the air, which, as you might think, means you can knock people out of the air with it. That's helpful when you need a clutch anti-air, and it's not going to work on every jump in the opponent does, but like knowing, hey, I can press X and hit somebody who's airborne, like that's going to save you in the early going a lot. Whereas like this medium kick, not as helpful in that situation, but it goes forward farther, so you can hit Ryu from way back here, whereas same distance with X, nothing. And then her heavy kick has the most range and actually goes airborne kind of, so you have some options for knocking people out of the air with that too. And as far as the 6 buttons go, same thing applies to crouching and jumping. So this is stand medium punch, or I'm sorry, stand light punch, that's crouching light punch. And going forward with that, medium, heavy, and then for kicks, light, medium, heavy. Jumps, same thing, 6 buttons. Light punch, medium punch, heavy punch, light kick, medium kick, heavy kick. Couple special properties in this game to keep in mind. Every crouch heavy kick, which is down at R2 on default controls, is a sweep. If you hit somebody with crouch heavy kick, it causes a knockdown every single time. So you will get them on the ground if it connects. That's important if you just need a basic combo. I mean, I'm sure you guys know the old school Street Fighter 2 combo of jump in, kick, crouch heavy kick. And now with Rashid, same rules. Light punch, medium punch, heavy punch. Light kick, medium kick, heavy kick. Man, that's his heavy kick? You just get R2 and you get all that? I didn't realize that move was so simple. That's a big deal. It's an important move for him. Alright, so we're back to Chun-Li. The point of all of that stuff is that it stops you, if you know where your buttons go, what's going to happen when you press certain buttons, it stops you from doing stuff randomly. So if you're this far away from somebody, you have no reason to be pressing square. If you're, this far away from somebody, you have no reason to be doing this. It will give you more like of a purpose, I guess, in the fight. When you're this close, maybe this isn't going to help you, but that will. Now speaking of like kind of the basic button stuff, some characters have what they call command normals or special normals. So I'm going to go into the command list here and R1 over to unique attacks is what this game calls them. So these are like regular moves, not like your special moves, but they have unique buttons. So for Chun-Li, this is a pretty useful one. If you press heavy kick, you get that. Back and heavy kick, you get that. That obviously hits in the air more, and you can do different kind of combos and stuff with that move. What other? I know she has some other ones, but I don't play her, so I don't know exactly what the inputs are. This one right here, this is down, forward, and heavy kick. That's a really useful move, obviously, because it switches sides on the person, so if they're not prepared to block that and they don't already know Chun-Li can do that, that's going to give you an advantage. So just, that's something you can find going in the command list, tab over to unique attacks, and these moves usually just press a direction and a button. The other kind of basic offense in the game is throwing. By default, that's square and X, which is light punch and light kick at the same time. So you'll see when I do it in my commands over there, it's a punch and a kick there, and they're blue because they're light ones. You can do back throw, hit back and those 2 buttons, and back throws always switch sides. So if you're in the corner and you can get a back throw, that'll get you out of the corner. And forward throw, obviously throws them forward, or just throw by itself without pressing back. Throw damage is consistent, so you'll see every time you do this throw, it's 120 damage on Ryu up there. And back throws, I think, do a little bit more damage and a little bit more stun. So that's something to keep in mind. Alright, so those are the basics for offense. The basic kind of defense in Street Fighter is pretty straightforward, really. Back is block, and down and back blocks low. The reason why down back is so important in Street Fighter is because if you're just doing back to block, that walks you backward. And if you keep doing that, you're going to end up in the corner, and that's, that causes its own problems. So the way that you usually want to block in Street Fighter, and I mean like usually at this level, that's going to change as time goes on, is to crouch block. That way you're blocking most attacks that can hit you, and you're not giving up that space by walking backwards. So you'll get very used to holding down and back in Street Fighter. That also means your offense from crouching is really important in this game because you're going to be crouching a lot. Now, to actually learn how blocking works, though, we need to have an opponent fight us, and that means we need to know some stuff about how training mode works. One of the first things you need to learn is how to set the dummy to do stuff. So in this case, I'm still controlling Chun-Li, but I need to make Ryu do some stuff. So I'm gonna hit options, go over to dummy settings here by hitting R1. R1 and L1 will change these tabs here. And I need to record an action. So I scrolled over to playback recording, and I'm gonna go to action recording settings here. Now you've got some slots here to record some actions. I'm just gonna save over slot 1 right now. So as soon as I press a button, it's gonna start recording those actions. So see at the middle, the top middle there, the little record dot shows up, and now I'm controlling Ryu. Now we're gonna do, I'm gonna re-record over that because it's just me walking back and forth. We're gonna have Ryu walk up and do a sweep. So that's one action. And then slot 2 here, let me back up to reset the space. All right, slot 2 here, we're gonna have him jump and heavy kick. And then slot 3, back up again here. Just need something, you know, we'll have him do a fireball. All right, so 1 is a sweep, 2 is a jump and heavy kick, 3 is a fireball. Now in playback, I'm only going to turn on 1, which means when I get back into the regular game, he's going to walk up and do that sweep because we recorded the sweep for 1. So he walked up, did the sweep. Now he didn't hit me, so let me reset here. Okay. Now obviously, you don't want to get swept by your opponent all the time. So to block that, since it's a low, you down and back, and you block it. So yeah, obviously to block lows, you block it low. If you're walking backward though, that's going to hit you because you can't block low attacks walking backward. So those are kind of properties about blocks that you need to keep in mind. Obviously I walked out of range, which is helpful in different ways, but yeah. Now we're going to go in here and turn off the sweep one, and we'll do the jump and heavy kick. That hits you blocking low. So the drawback to blocking low, well, one of the drawbacks is that you will get hit by air attacks, but walking backward, you won't. So if your opponent is mixing it up, whether they're attacking high or low, you need to recognize that you might need to stand up and block versus crouch blocking. And last was, I think I had him throw a fireball. And you'll see that because this hits medium, it even says it under my health bar there, it says attack level high. Sorry, not medium. You can block that both ways. So you can block it walking backward, or you can block it crouching. So that's one thing you need to learn about training mode, is how to do the action recording. We recorded 3 things. We recorded, this one was sweep, 3 was Hadouken, and this was jump and heavy. So I'm going to use that jump heavy recording again, this time, to test out anti-air. So we know what he's doing. He's going to jump in the air and do that every time. I mentioned before her standing light kick counters that, and this is how you would test that. Now you can do that for every character. So the dummy is set to Ryu right now, but you can set him to, say, Nash, and figure out how to anti-air against some of the stuff he has. I tried medium punch there, didn't work, I got hit. That one, it kind of worked because it traded, but that's not ideal, you know. That kick works pretty well, that's back in heavy kick. So basically you want to do this for, you know, other characters that you play. And figure out what you have that will get them out of the air when they jump at you. I think Chun-Li also has even like an air, yeah, just jump and grab a person, and that takes priority over most of their attacks. So even if they're doing like a kick or a punch, you still have a chance of getting them out of the air. So speaking of anti-airs and kind of figuring out how to beat specific characters, last night a lot of the trouble was people fighting against DeAndre's Nash. I'm kind of blowing up his spot here, but he did a lot of this move. That's not it. I don't know. Okay, there we go. Sonic Sight, right? That's the name of it. No, the Moonsault. Whatever. Did a lot of that move. That move comes at you from the air. I'm gonna reset the training here. So what you can do is come in, do the move that's giving you trouble, and then start to figure out how to deal with it. So I recorded that on slot 1. Playback. I want to play slot 1 again. Alright, so what button? Well, we found that fast. Apparently you can just jab that out of the air as Ken. But the timing on that is pretty tight. I can't even really get it consistently. So what else we got? I think Ken's crouch and heavy punch. There we go. So from this space, if he does that move, down in R1, not only do you knock him out of the air, but you also discourage that player from using that move on you at this distance, which is going to help you defensively because you don't have to worry about that move as much. So little stuff like that. You get beat by a move, you can come into training, record that move happening, and then figure out how to deal with it. And obviously at the slightly more advanced level, you have an anti-air because you're Ken, and you can every single time. And then when you get really good with the timing, you can mess up your super like I just did. Yeah. But you get the point. But keep it basic for now. You got one button to stop that move, just hit that button, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You probably do it with a kick too. I don't know. I don't Ken. So one last thing about defense I forgot to mention. We'll do this. We'll have Ryu set to walk up and sweep, and then throw. That was slot 4, so go to playback, set that to 4. So it's going to walk up and sweep, and then throw when I get up. To get out of that situation, you do your own throw. That is what's called a throw tech. I did it late that time, but that is how you deal with people throwing you. You'll learn, it might not happen at this point in your like Street Fighter career, but you will learn that people tend to throw at predictable times at the lower levels. So you'll get comfortable. You're not so much trying to time your throw thing as you are trying to realize, oh, this is when they like to throw. And, you know, kind of preemptively be prepared to counter that throw. So now that we know how to mess with the training settings and like individual buttons for the character, we should get into another thing that every character has, which is the V gauge. It's that blinking red bar down there. It fills when you take damage, but it also fills when you do damage with your V skill. So for most characters, V skill is triangle. I think it's every character. V skill is triangle and circle at the same time, which is medium punch and medium kick. And so to do that, to kind of show how the meter builds up, I'm gonna go in here and want to set. Oh, that's health gauge. I want to do that. One player V gauge to normal, and then I'm just gonna activate his V trigger to spend it and empty it out. All right. So I don't have any V meter right now. If I take damage, it'll build up the meter, but you can also, like I said, do it with V skill. So that's triangle and circle. For him, that's just that flip, but you can press buttons out of that. I think kick will get you a little dive kick. Yeah, and you see I got some V meter out of that. But again, that's only because that's a V skill. If I was to do a regular hit, nothing. So we've got building V meter out of the way. Use your V skill basically, or take damage. Let me show Vega hitting me here. Gonna have him slide into me. And you see the V reversal, the V gauge filled up and says V reversal now. So we'll get into what that actually is. I want to turn the V gauge back to max, or yeah, auto recover here. And you'll notice when it's half full, it says V reversal. When it's full, it says V trigger. At V trigger, when it's full, you hit both strong buttons, which is R1 and R2, strong punch and strong kick, or heavy punch and heavy kick. And so you get that for Rashid. It's obviously different for everybody. Some V triggers are just buffs to the character. Some of them are just individual attacks, like Rashid's here. And you can like combo off of that. I don't know. There's some stuff you can do. But that's one use of the V gauge. The other use is called a V reversal. And to show that, I'm going to have Vega hit me. So we'll give him this action. So he's set up to do a couple sweeps. Turn that on. Block. Well, okay, now we'll block these sweeps. And the way that you do a V reversal, I forgot to actually go and look here. Go to command list. I'm gonna tab over to V system. Every character's V reversal is you block and then you press forward and either all three punches or all three kicks. His is this one. So you block and then you press forward and all three punches. By default, all three punches is set to L1. You can also just press all 3 punches manually. You can press square, triangle, and R1 at the same time, but that would be really hard, which is why the default controls for controller might be the best way to go in this game. So I'm gonna block, hit forward and L1. His V reversal doesn't do damage like some other characters will, but it does get you out of, switches sides, which means if you're in the corner and you do that, you will get out of the corner. You can't be hit during a V reversal either, but you can be grabbed. So if your opponent knows you're about to do a V reversal, they can kind of grab you out of it. You won't see a lot of that at this level though. That would be kind of a future problem to deal with. But for now, yeah, you got at least 1 bar of V gauge. You can V reversal out of a situation by spending that bar. Alright, so I'm going to turn off his recording thing. The last thing that I wanted you guys to work on, or that I suggest, I guess, is when you have a character that you think you might want to try learning to play and everything, just come into training and go to command list, and under special moves here, once you've gotten all the buttons and stuff down for each character, or for the character you're playing, like, just do every move. I know that sounds like basic, but like, see what they do so that you're not in a match just mashing out moves and trying to figure them out there. For some like characters, the inputs are all kind of the same in Street Fighter. So like this little arrow going from down to forward here means that you're trying to do what they call a quarter circle forward. That's like a basic Street Fighter input. So if you see my buttons over here on the side, let me reset so they're blanked out there. That spinning mixer is, it's like down to forward and then punch. So your input for that will be down, then the corner between forward and down, and then forward, and then a punch button. The punch button has to come at the same time as the forward. So in motion to do the move, it will look like this. Yeah, I did it wrong. My suggestion, and this is kind of how I learned to play the game, when you're doing these moves, try to be able to do it 10 times in a row, or 5 times depending on how much patience you have, consistently from both sides. So 5 this way, jump over, 5 the other way. That's how you build up muscle memory, and eventually that'll become second nature. As far as the command list goes, he has this one here. It's the same move, but it's backward and a kick button. So it's down to back instead of down to forward. And these are like common moves too. They'll, like Ryu has a move that is done, with down to forward and punch, and a move that is done with down to back and kick. So once you get these inputs kind of put into muscle memory, you'll actually be able to play with pretty much every character. And there's another like important Street Fighter input to learn. I don't know that Rashid has any moves that use it. Yeah, we'll switch to Ryu for it. So similar to Rashid, you've got a down to forward and punch and a down to back and kick move here. So that's down to forward and punch, down to back and kick. And then the other kind of main input for these types of characters is the Shoryuken input. The Shoryuken is, this uppercut that Ryu does. A lot of characters have it. Ken has it as well. Sagat has it. People refer to those as DPs because they used to be called dragon punches. I think is that what Shoryuken translates to? I don't know. But so if you hear someone say DP, they mean an uppercut. They mean one of those jumping Shoryuken type uppercuts. The input for this is one of the hardest things you will learn like early in Street Fighter. It's that little Z looking symbol right there. Basically what they're asking for is to go forward, then down, and then the corner between forward and down, and the punch button. The way I learned this when I first started playing fighting games was I would just walk forward and then go down into the corner and hit the button. It's not exactly consistent, but you'll get more comfortable eventually doing it all separately. Like you'll hit the forward, take your thumb off the D-pad, and then hit the down and the corner and the punch button. That's usually how I do it. Like I'm kind of tap the forward fast and then down and corner for the punch button. I did it wrong that time. And that time. But I'm so much worse at this than I'm recording. But yeah, that's an input you kind of need to know, because Uppercutting is super useful for anti-air situations, and also because you can get stuff like that off of them. We'll get more into like what you can do with your uppercut later. The important thing is that you can go to command list and know how to know what these inputs mean and how to do them. So that Z input for sure that's one you're going to need to learn if you're playing Nash, Ryu, Ken, Akuma, Sagat, Sakura, like a lot of Street Fighter characters. And there's one other major kind of set of inputs, or two other in Street Fighter V. But one of them is kind of brand new to this game, and only two characters have them. There's Ed and Falk. But your other kind of characters that are not what they call Shoto characters, that have all the down and forwards and all that stuff, are called charge characters. Guile is one of those, Chun-Li is one of those, and that's who we're going to be picking. I think Nikali might also be a charge character. Bison is, and you'll know that when you look at their inputs. So I'm going to go and kind of show how those work too. Alright, so Chun-Li's got the Kikoken, and I thought she had a kick. Oh yeah, of course, spinning bird kick, which is down and up. Alright. So these are charge moves. You notice the inputs are different than like the quarter circle thing right here. So this move is basically you're holding back and then you press forward and a punch button. So I'm holding back and then kind of forward and punch at the same time, you get a fireball. Now the problem with kind of charge characters in general, the trick to it is that if you hold back, then you're walking backward, you're giving up space, and you're pushing yourself to the corner. The way to deal with that is to charge your charge moves by pressing down and back at the same time. That's super helpful for Chun-Li because her other charge move is you hold down and you press up and kick for spinning bird kick. I'll do a reset here so the buttons are cleared out. If you charge both though, so I'm charging back and down because I'm holding down and back at the same time, you have both options. So up and X from here will give you the spinning bird kick, but forward and square from here will give you the fireball. If you're fighting a Chun-Li and she's sitting there like this, then you don't know which one of those two moves is coming. So that's kind of it for basic inputs in Street Fighter and all of this other stuff this video has covered. I'm not sure what we would get into next, probably cancels and stuff, and I'll figure out how best to kind of illustrate that. But for now, like, pick a character, learn their buttons, hit the command list, look at their moves in here, and make sure you can do them, like you can do them consistently and kind of on command, and you get there by doing them, 5 or 10 times each side. If you're going to 5 times and you fail once, then start back over. Like, if you don't, you're kind of cheating yourself. You're gonna have that time in the match where you're like, oh, I just messed up this move that I know how to do, and you want to kind of minimize that situation. All right, I'm gonna stop talking now. I'll see y'all later.